Hello kids, good morning. As I mentioned during the week, I'm not going to be here for the following days, and that's why I have prepared a series of videos that your teacher is going to be playing for you today, okay, and for the following days. Now, the purpose of the videos is for me to teach you as if I was still here, as if I was not away. It's like being in two places at the same time, okay? Now the advantage of the videos is that you can pause them at any moment if there are any questions or if there is something that you want to hear again. If there is an explanation that you're not understanding, you can pause the video at any moment, play it again, play it slower, or ask your teacher to explain it in a different way. I'll try to be as clear as possible because again, since I am recording this video, I cannot hear your questions, or I cannot realize if you're understanding everything. Okay, so I'm gonna give you 1 minute. I want to make sure that everyone is ready. Make sure that you have your notebook out. Make sure that you have put your iPad away. And make sure that you're paying attention to your teacher. Any instructions that she's giving you, make sure that you're ready for the class. Okay, so let's begin. Here we go. As you may know, we're gonna start a new lesson today. Okay, the new lesson is Sexuality 3.5. Lesson 3.5 is the 5th lesson of the 3rd trimester. Now I'm wasting a little bit of time here just to make sure that everyone is ready. Make sure that you got your pen or pencils or whatever you need to make your notes in your notebook. Okay, now hoping that everyone is ready, and using the fact that you can pause the video if you're not, I'm going to continue with the introduction. Okay, so the lesson is sexuality. And something that is very, very interesting is that kids your age, when they hear the word sexuality, they automatically relate it to sexual activities. And I don't blame you, okay? If you take a look at a word, okay, the first 3 letters, it's actually sex, you see? So why wouldn't you think that sexuality is related to sexual activities, right? It makes sense, especially at your age. But don't worry. What I want you to understand, and what we will learn in today's lesson, is that sexuality is a bigger and more complex concept. It's not as simple as just saying, oh, it's sexual activities and that's it. No, sexuality involves different aspects of our lives. And I'm gonna say something that might be a little bit shocking for some of you, but I want you to understand that we practice our sexuality every single day. You, me, everyone, your teacher, everyone practices their sexuality every single day. And I can imagine some of your faces, you're like, teacher, I'm not sure about that. I don't practice any sexualities every single day. But after this lesson, you will understand why I am saying this, okay? So let's begin with the definition. What is sexuality? It reads, sexuality refers to the set of biological, psychological, social, and cultural characteristics that determine an individual's ability to develop as a member of the community. Okay, I know that there are a lot of words, so I'm going to highlight the important things here. Sexuality is a set of biological, psychological, social, and cultural characteristics that will help an individual to develop as a member of the community. Each one of us, we belong to a society. We are part of our community, and we have to develop as we grow older within the community. We function with the community members, we participate in different activities, and that development has to do with our sexuality. Okay? As I was saying, sexuality involves different aspects of your life. It obviously involves your body and anything that you do with your body. That would be the biological part of the definition. But it also involves the psychological part of your individuality. The things that you believe in, the things that you think, your emotions, and all the different things that you learn as you grow older, that will be part of the psychological part. That will be part of the psychological section of sexuality. Okay? Now, social and cultural characteristics are also an important part to understand here. Because sexuality is not going to be the same here in Mexico as it will be, for example, in Asia, or it's going to be in Africa. Sexuality, as we live it here in our country, might be different in different societies. And it also changes through time. Sexuality, the way we live sexuality nowadays, is not going to be the same way as our parents live sexuality or our great-grandparents, right? So try to understand, since now, that there are many different things that involve sexuality, and it's not just sexual activities, okay? To understand the concept a little bit more, I want to mention that sexuality is made of 4 principal dimensions. Now, when we say dimensions, We're not referring to any astrophysical multiverse kind of thing. We use the word dimensions because, well, it's like a fancy term to use, but we can say 4 main components or 4 main elements, okay? And that's what the lesson is going to be about. If you need to pause the video right now, if someone hasn't finished copying, you can pause it right now. Teacher, could you please pause the video just to make sure? Thank you very much. If you didn't pause it, there's another chance. If your teacher was away, now you're there, okay, make sure that you pause it. Good. Let's continue. Assuming that you unpause the video, everyone has finished copying. Let's continue with the first of the 4 dimensions. As I mentioned, there are 4 dimensions of sexuality. These 4 parts of our life make up or build up our sexuality. And the first one is sex and gender, okay? Now again, the first word here, sex, okay? Some of you might be giggling, some of you might be like nervous, like teachers saying sex out loud, okay? When we say sex in this context, we're not referring to sexual activities, you see? We're not referring to sexual physical interactions that lead to reproduction, no. When we talk about sex, we are referring, there it is. We're referring to the physical differences between males and females, okay? Physical differences between males and females. And I'm going to ask your teacher for a little of help here, okay? Because obviously I cannot hear what you're going to answer, but I have a question for you all. What makes the difference between a male and a female? Anyone? Raise your hand. And, well, teacher, you can listen to them, okay? Just try to discuss with each other. And I'm just going to be pretending that I'm listening, okay? What makes the difference between a male and a female? Yes, of course, okay? So the difference that we have as humans, we have physical differences, obvious physical differences. Our bodies are going to be different. We humans and many other animals in nature, we have something known as dimorphism, okay? It means that males are going to look in a certain way, females are going to look a different way. Our bodies are going to be different. That's what dimorphism is. And humans, we present that characteristic. Now, if I were to ask you, which is the principal or the primary difference between males and females, I'm pretty sure that you would answer that the primary difference is the reproductive system, right? So make sure that you copy this right here, reproductive system. Our reproductive system is going to be the first or the initial difference between males and females. Our sex, biologically speaking, is determined by our reproductive organs. Since the moment you're born, actually before you are born, you're already determined sexually as a male or a female. And I want to make something clear here, okay? When we say male and female, we're not saying man and woman, okay? If we make the translation here in Spanish, male and female will be translated as macho y hembra. Okay, so when we talk about sex in humans and many other animals and actually some plants, we refer to machos y hembras. Okay, so that's what sex is about. Biologically speaking, those are the 2 options for sex. Okay, now some of you might be confused, some of you might be like a little bit conflicted? Yes, conflicted with the difference between sex and gender. And that's why I wanted to start with this part right here. Again, if you need to pause the video, if you need to finish copying the first definition, go ahead, pause it, and I will continue. Gender, on the other hand, is related to the roles and expectations society has towards individuals based on being male or being female. Okay? Roles and expectations society has. Now, something very important here. The gender of a person is not determined completely by the person. Gender is going to be referring to what society expects me to do as a member of the community. Okay? Roles and genders. If I am a male in this society, society will expect me to behave a certain way and to fulfill certain functions in the community. Society will want me to participate in a specific ways within the community just because I'm a male. And if you're a female, they will expect you to behave a certain way or to participate in certain functions. Okay? Now, gender is highly influenced by culture. Gender here in Mexico is not going to be the same as gender in Australia. It's not going to be the same as gender in Africa or any part of the world. Why? Because our culture, our society will have certain expectations, certain roles that males have to fulfill or females have to fulfill. Okay? And I'm gonna ask your teacher for a little help here, because I want you to discuss real quick, maybe 2 minutes, what kind or which examples of roles and expectations can you think of that males have in Mexico nowadays? What kind of expectations females have or society has for females nowadays? Okay, so you can pause the video and just discuss that for 2 minutes. Okay, what things society wants males to do in Mexico, what things society wants females to do in Mexico. Pause the video. Okay, so I'm assuming that you have discussed certain examples, and also I want you to realize that all those examples that you mentioned, they might be active right now, like they may be something that happens right now in our Mexico. But if we wait several generations, if we wait maybe 10 years or 15 years, those roles and expectations might change. Because again, gender is influenced by culture. Our culture changes, society evolves, so things are going to be different in a couple of years or in several generations. Okay? Are there any questions between sex and gender? I'm assuming not. And if you have any questions, just pause the video, ask your teacher, and she might explain it a little bit better. Okay? Let's move on. Second dimension, affectional bonds. Now, some of you may not have a good idea on what a bond is right here. A bond is going to be like a connection. Okay? Bond is like a, how can I say, yes, I think connection is a very good word to represent a bond. Affectional, well, it's related to affection, relating to caring, like loving or being not interested, but caring for someone else. Affectional bonds refer to the levels of attachment that we form with all the other members of society, represented by manifestations of love, trust, and respect. I know you might be thinking, oh teacher, you're just reading the definitions, but I'm going to explain. Okay? Affectional bonds refer to how much we can connect with other individuals. Humans, being social animals, we like to interact with other members of the community, with other people that are around us. Okay? And we're going to try to connect with them, or we're going to connect with them in different levels. Okay? That's what affectional bonds refer to. You're not going to feel the same way towards me, your teacher, that you feel, for example, towards your parents. Okay? Or you're not going to feel the same way for your friends that you do for maybe a stranger in the street. You see, there's going to be a difference on how close you feel to those persons, depending on how much you love them, you trust them, or you respect them. If I love someone a lot, okay, most probably I'm going to trust them a lot. Most probably I'm going to respect them a lot. But I'm not going to be loving everyone the same way. I'm not going to be respecting everyone the same way. I'm not going to be trusting everyone the same way. And I have a couple of examples for you, okay? Imagine that you are in school, okay? You're walking down the stairs. You're all alone. Maybe you went to the restroom during a class or something. And while you were walking down, you tripped, okay? You fell down. You hurt your ankle. You cannot stand up. Would you ask anyone passing by to help you up? I think you would, right? Like any student that passes by, any teacher that passes by, you would ask them to help you. Why? Because people in school, they give us a certain amount of trust. You see, they inspire a certain amount of trust. I know that I can trust people in school because it's somehow a safe place for me to trust people. But if I am walking down the street, okay, maybe I'm downtown, or maybe I'm in a different city where I don't know anyone, if the same thing happens to me, if I fall and I trip and I hurt my ankle and I cannot stand up or walk, maybe I won't ask anyone for help. Okay, if I see lots of people passing by, I may not feel enough trust to ask anyone to help me out. Okay? But maybe, for example, if I see a police officer passing by, or I see a doctor passing by, I might ask them for help. Why? Because I might feel a little bit more trust towards them for them to help. You see? So we are going to be connecting with all the other members in society, but at different levels. Okay? And with this love, trust, and respect, you can even like set a number for them. Like from 1 to 10, how much I love this person, or how much I love my friends, how much I love my parents, how much I trust them, how much I respect them. Okay? And you can think of your best friend, okay? Your best friend forever, you know? And if you think of how much you trust your friend from 1 to 10, maybe you will give them a 10. Maybe you will trust them on a 10 level because you tell them everything, because you know they will be there for you at any moment. That's the level of trust. But maybe how much you love your best friend, it may not be a level 10 of love. Maybe you will love them an 8 or a 7, you see? Because, well, it's not that much of the love we have for them, but we trust them enough. And if you compare it to your parents, for example, maybe you don't trust your parents completely, like maybe you won't give them a 10 in trust, maybe because you're a little bit shy of what they feel, maybe you're worried that they will get angry, so you don't tell them everything. So maybe you trust them a 9 or even an 8, but I'm sure that you will love them more than your best friend, okay? Maybe you love them a 10, maybe you love them a 9. Maybe if you don't have a good relationship with your father or your mother, you will love them a 6 or a 5. So there's going to be different amounts of love, trust, and respect that we will be feeling for other members of society. And that's what affectional bonds are. And that's why I said at the beginning of the lesson that we practice our sexuality every single day. Because these connections, these relationships that we form, they become stronger as we practice them every single day. Your friends become closer, they become best friends the more that you deal with them. So that's why I was saying sexuality is practiced every single day. Now I'm gonna pause this, or I'm gonna pause myself, because I want to check that everything is recording properly. Give me a second. Actually, so yeah, good. So let's continue. Those are the first 2 dimensions, okay? Now we're gonna go through the third dimension, and the third dimension is related to what we originally thought sexuality was about, right? We mentioned at the beginning the word sexuality involves, the first 3 letters say sex. So it has to deal with sexual activities. And the third dimension is reproduction. Okay, you may know what reproduction is about, and I'm not going to ask you how reproduction happens because I don't want to put your teacher in an awkward situation in which you start saying random things related to sexual activities, but I'm going to give you the definition right away. It's a biological process and ability to create offspring. You see, individuals, in this case humans, because we're talking about us, we're talking about humans, we have an ability to produce babies. You see, when an individual reproduces, they create babies. Now I'm using a fancy word here, the word offspring. It's basically descendants. En español sería crear descendencia, to create offspring, create babies. When does this happen? Okay, when does reproduction happen? And again, you might be thinking, teacher, when there are sexual activities, reproduction happens. And you could even go a little bit more explicit and talk about sexual organs getting together, but that's not what I'm referring to. I want us to go a little bit more specific, and I want you to understand that reproduction happens when sperm cell and the egg cell combine. You see, I know that there has to be some physical interactions for reproduction to exist, but what I want you to remember is that the reproductive cells, sperm cell and egg cell, are the key for reproduction. If they don't come together, reproduction won't happen. And there are sexual activities that do not involve the sperm cell or the egg cell coming together. Okay? So reproduction is not about sexual activities completely. It has to do with the reproductive cells coming together. Is that clear? Good. So let's continue. If you want to pause it, you know it. Okay? Good. Number 4. The last one of the dimensions, eroticism. Now, at the beginning of the school year, some of you saw that we were going to be talking about sexuality. A few weeks ago, you were like, no, teacher, please, let's not talk about sexuality. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. Now, the reason why you were nervous to talk about this lesson is because you relate sexuality to certain things, to certain, let's say, nasty things, inappropriate content for school. And you are not completely wrong. There is one little part of sexuality that actually has to deal with those parts or those activities. Okay? This dimension, eroticism, is the one that involves all of those things that you thought were sexuality. Okay? Eroticism involves sexual instinct, sexual desires, sexual arousal, physical pleasure, sensuality, interactions, masturbation, romanticism, emotions, etc. Okay, so the list could go on and on and on and on because there are many things in which or that involve eroticism. Okay, I'm gonna give you a certain set of examples so that you understand that eroticism is not only like the obscene part of sexuality. Okay. To start with the words, maybe you're not familiar with these first, the first three concepts: sexual instinct, sexual desires, and sexual arousal. When we talk about those things, I mean, there's a lot of sexual in the definition, right? So, sexual instinct, sexual desire, sexual arousal, sexual, okay? Sexual instinct is the animal part of ourselves. There is an animal primitive, let's say, part of our nervous system that guides us to reproduction. Because being honest, biology dictates us to reproduce. We want the species to continue existing. We want humans to continue on our planet. So there will be a part of ourselves, within ourselves, sexual instinct that will guide us to reproduce. So we have that, just as animals. Animals have a reproductive instinct, a sexual instinct, and they will respond to it whenever the seasons change. You see? So we have that as well. Sexual desires, as aware, how can you say, like as conscious beings, we are aware of the things that we like and the things that we dislike. So involving our sexual instinct or connected to our sexual instinct, we will have certain desires of the things that we want. Okay? And this sounds a little bit weird, but we may feel attracted to a certain type of people. See? We may find certain characteristics to be attractive. We may find some people to be prettier than others. That is part of our sexual desires. The things that I like or the things that I want to connect with, or the ones that I want to relate with in a sexual way, in a reproductive way, let's say. Okay? Sexual arousal. Now, the word arousal, I don't think like a lot of you may know it. Arousal refers, like in Spanish, is translated as excitación sexual. That's what sexual arousal means. Okay? Sexual arousal, excitación sexual, has to do with the physical changes that our body has during or before a sexual activity happens. See, when we are interacting physically with our significant other, okay, when we're interacting physically with our boyfriend or our girlfriend or our husband or wife, our body will experience certain changes that will somehow prepare us for reproduction. All of those preparations, physical changes or reactions that our body has are known as sexual arousal. Okay, I think I've been talking a lot and I've been talking a little bit too fast. So if you want to pause the video now and ask some questions, I think your teacher may be able to answer some of them. And I'm going to continue now. If you didn't pause it, pause it. Physical pleasure. Now, pleasure is something that we experience. Sexual activities or sexual interactions are not only designed, or how can I say this? They're not only practiced, that's the word. Sexual activities are not only practiced for reproduction. Sometimes sexual activities will be practiced only for physical pleasure, and that has to do with your beliefs, okay? And when we say sexual activities, I'm not referring to sexual intercourse, okay? I'm not referring to penis and vagina coming together. Sexual activities include kissing and hugging, okay? Those are known or are referred to as sexual activities as well. We will discuss that later, okay? But physical pleasure, okay, is a part of eroticism. Sensuality, masturbation, Now, I know some of you may not want to talk about masturbation, but masturbation is part of our sexuality. I'm not gonna go very deep into the details, okay? But masturbation is gonna be something personal, something that you should experience on your own, okay? If that's something that you believe in, okay? Our beliefs, our personal or even religious beliefs can determine how we experience our body, how we get to know our body. So just be careful. I'm gonna mention this one, I'm gonna dare to say this once in front of everyone, because I know, like, every single year I get the same question, like, teacher, is it bad to masturbate? Teacher, is it bad if I masturbate a lot, or how much is a lot? And some of you might be laughing right now, okay? And I don't want you to look at your friends or whatever, because I don't want you to be pointing any fingers. But I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna explain it in the most professional way I can, okay? Masturbation, as it is, like for those of you who do not know, masturbation refers to touching yourself or yes, exploring your body in order to feel physical pleasure. Okay, that's what masturbation is. Basically, like in a rough concept, that's what masturbation is. Now, masturbation is basically a way in which you can know yourself, in which you get to know what you feel or what you like or what you dislike in a sexual kind of way. Okay? I wouldn't dare to say that masturbation is good or bad, because each one of us may have a different concept of what good and bad is. But what I'm gonna say is, if you stop hanging with your friends, if you stop doing like other activities that you like to do, if you stop practicing sports or playing guitar or doing anything else because you prefer to masturbate, that's when masturbation might be a little bit too much. Okay? If you prefer to cancel any plans to stay home and masturbate, well, that's bad enough. Okay? So that's the only thing I'm gonna say. That's what that's my opinion on the matter. If you have like a more specific question, and you can ask your teacher right now, or you can send me a message if you don't want to ask your teacher, or if you want to ask me later when I go back, that's okay. Okay, so moving on. Now this part is going to be a little bit longer than the others. I mean, you can see how long it is, because there are many things that I need you to understand, and what I want is to break with that idea of like the obscene part of sexuality. Okay, I don't want you to just be like, oh no, can you wakala? So I want you to understand exactly what they are, like all these concepts are, and why they are important. Now the last one right here, emotions. We have mentioned all these sexual activities, things like the physical contact, physical interactions, but emotions are also an important part of our sexuality, and they are included here in eroticism, because the way that I feel towards a person, okay, that's also important. If I like this person, if I love this person, if that person makes me feel happy, if that person makes me feel safe, if that person makes me feel trust, that's also important. If I am scared of being with someone, well, that's not a good way to experience your sexuality. Okay, so emotions are also important, so keep that in mind. And last thing is, this dimension is also influenced by culture, and it evolves with society. Okay, the way that we experience all of these things, it's not going to be the same way here in Mexico that people experience it in, for example, Germany or Russia or Australia. Okay, people will experience eroticism in a different way, and you can see it, for example, in movies. If you see movies from different countries or series from different countries, you will see that the way they practice or they represent romanticism, like all these scenarios in which people will go to the beach and have a date, a romantic date under the moonlight, or have some candles, or go to the opera or whatever. All of those ideas of what a perfect date is are going to be different from one country to another, from one culture to another. Why? Because it's one of the biggest differences between societies. Okay, so keep that in mind. And if I like something and you like something different, that's okay. Even within the same society, we might have a different perception of what romanticism is. Okay? The other day I was listening to some of you kids, I don't remember which group, but someone was saying like trying to how do you say, like they were trying to ask a girl out, and they were like, oh, llévale un ramo buchón, okay, referring like to this huge bunch of roses that sometimes they give to people. Okay, so that might be a way in which people like that might be something that people enjoy, that people find attractive, that people find romantic. But maybe someone else says, like, maybe if you bring just one rose and a handwritten letter, that might be a romantic gesture for them to like fall in love or whatever. So there's going to be many differences on how we experience our eroticism. Okay? Now, one last thing about eroticism, kids, is that you need to get proper information by your parents, teachers, or a specialist. And that's why this lesson was so important for you to have, because you need to get the right information. If you go on the internet and search for your questions, two things may happen. Number one, you may find inappropriate content, and we don't want that, of course, okay? Or number two, you might find misleading information. You might find lies and things that are not true, things that are not scientifically proven. So that's why it's important that we have this lesson, because as teachers, we're gonna provide you with the correct information for you to develop into a proper member of society. See, we're trying to protect you from all those lies. Now, some of you might think that you know a lot of information and maybe sharing it with your friends, and some of you might be having questions like, oh, un amigo me dijo que si esto and the other. So all of those things that you see on Instagram or TikTok, they might not be real. So if you're not sure of something that you heard or something that someone told you, ask a teacher. Okay, and I'm gonna say ask a teacher because I know most of you won't feel comfortable asking your parents. Okay, so make sure that you check or double check the information that you get. Okay, so I think that's it for this lesson right here. As you can see, there were not so many notes. Make sure that you have them all. If you need to pause the video, if you need to go back on something, make sure that you do. I'm gonna upload this link on Algebraics so that you can watch it at home. If you missed something, or you didn't take your notes properly, or you wanna re-watch it to understand something, make sure that you do. Okay, for now, I'm gonna thank your teacher, and I think it's gonna be time for you to leave soon. So so just be ready, put your stuff away, be happy. I'll see you tomorrow.